The coffee hit the man's suit before Elena even realized she had walked into him. Gasps erupted around her. Real, shocked gasps. The kind people make when something expensive has just been destroyed. Elena Rivera froze. Her white cane tapped once against the polished marble floor of the shopping mall, echoing softly in the sudden silence. "I'm so sorry," she said quickly, her voice tight with embarrassment. "I didn't—" Someone nearby whispered under their breath. "Oh my God." Another voice murmured nervously. "That's him." Elena frowned. She held the crushed coffee cup in her hand, feeling the warm liquid dripping down her fingers. The man in front of her hadn't said anything yet. That worried her more than if he had yelled. Elena carefully reached forward with the napkin wrapped around her cup. "Here," she said. "Let me—" Her hand missed entirely. Instead of touching the coffee stain, she brushed empty air. A hand caught her wrist gently. Not rough, not angry, just firm enough to guide her hand. "You missed," the man said calmly. His voice was deep, smooth, controlled, and there was the faintest trace of a Korean accent beneath his American English. Elena let out a breath. "Yeah," she muttered. "That happens a lot." He guided her hand another few inches until the napkin touched wet fabric. Expensive fabric. She could tell by the way the coffee absorbed into it instead of dripping. "I'm blind, so I miss things." Usually when she said that, people reacted in predictable ways. They apologized, or got awkward, or walked away. But this man didn't do any of those things. Instead, he asked calmly, "Was the coffee good before it attacked me?" Elena blinked. That's not usually the first question people ask. "Humor me," she sighed. "It was fine, just a $4 black coffee from the kiosk downstairs. Nothing special." "Well," he said, "it changed my suit." "That did it." Elena groaned softly. "I'm guessing that suit costs more than my rent." There was a brief pause. Then something unexpected happened. The man laughed. It wasn't loud, but it was real. Behind him, someone else spoke urgently. "Mr. Kang, we should go. Your meeting in Bellevue starts in 40 minutes. Mr. Kang. The name meant absolutely nothing to Elena, but judging from the tension in the voice, it clearly meant something to everyone else. The man ignored him. "You were heading the wrong way," he told Elena. She frowned. "I was going to the east exit." "You were walking toward a storage hallway." Her cheeks warmed. That was the thing about being blind. You could memorize every step and still get turned around if someone moved a display or crowd noise confused your direction. "Great, that's embarrassing." "You counted your steps wrong." "How do you know I was counting?" "You whispered 36 under your breath." Elena paused, then sighed. "Fine, you caught me." Another small silence settled between them. Not uncomfortable, just curious. The final man spoke again. "My name is Kang Jae-Min." "Okay." He waited. She didn't react. That seemed to surprise him. "You don't recognize the name?" "Nope." Another pause. Then Elena shrugged. "Should I?" Behind him, someone quietly cleared his throat, but Jae-Min only chuckled. "No," he said. "It's refreshing that you don't." Elena tilted her head slightly. She couldn't see his face, but she could hear something in his voice. Interest. Not pity, not impatience. Interest. That was rare. "Look, I ruined your suit. I'm sorry, but my sister is supposed to be meeting me and she disappeared somewhere near the perfume section." "You're still going the wrong direction." "I figured." "I can walk you to the exit." "I don't need an escort." "I know." He paused. "I'm offering anyway." Elena hesitated. 3 years of blindness had taught her something important. You learn to hear people differently. Tone, breathing, intent. This man's voice carried none of the pity she hated, just quiet patience. "All right," she said finally, "but only because I'm tired of walking into walls today." He fell into step beside her. He didn't grab her arm, didn't touch her cane. He simply matched her pace. 7 steps. To what? The escalator. She tapped her cane once. Sure enough, metal edge. She smiled faintly. "You're good at this." "I observe things." They continued walking. People moved around them, whispering. Elena heard the murmurs. Is that really him? Why is he talking to her? Does she know who that is? Elena sighed. "Okay," she said quietly. "What's going on?" "What do you mean? Everyone keeps whispering like I just spilled coffee on the president." Jae-Min gave a quiet laugh. "Nothing that dramatic." They reached the exit doors. Warm Seattle air drifted in from outside. Jae-Min stopped. "Your sister," he said. Blue jacket, talking loudly on the phone near the fountain. Elena smiled. "That's Sophia." She turned slightly toward his voice. "I really am sorry about the suit." "I'm not." That caught her off guard. "Why?" "Because otherwise I wouldn't have met you." Elena didn't know what to say to that, so she did what she always did when life threw her something strange. She changed the subject. "Well, Mr. Expensive Suit, try not to walk into any blind women today." "I'll do my best." She tapped her cane and walked toward her sister's voice. Sophia noticed the two men standing behind Elena and nearly dropped her phone. One of them looked like a bodyguard, the other, tall, sharp-featured, dressed in a dark suit with a large coffee stain across the front, and watching Elena walk away like something about her had completely disrupted her world. "Who was that?" Sophia asked. Elena shrugged. "No idea." "You spilled coffee on him." "Yep." "And he didn't yell?" "Nope." Sophia glanced back again. Two black SUVs waited at the curb. Men in suits stood nearby. Her eyes widened. "Floor, that guy is rich, rich." Elena snorted. "I figured that out when the coffee hit his jacket." They walked toward the parking lot. Behind them, Kang Jae-Min stood still for a long moment. His assistant stepped closer. Lee Don-hyun had worked for him for nearly 10 years. He had seen negotiations worth billions, corporate battles, security crises, but he had never seen his boss stare at a stranger like this. "Sir," Kang Du-han said quietly. Jae-Min didn't look away. Who was she? Dion pulled out his phone. "I can find out." "Do that." Minutes later, they were inside a black SUV heading toward downtown Seattle. The city skyline reflected off the glass windows. Du-han studied the information on his screen. Her name is Elena Rivera, 28, lives in Brooklyn originally, but moved here 3 years ago. Jae-Min looked up slightly. "Why Seattle?" "Medical treatment." Du-han continued reading. "She lost her sight due to retinal degeneration." Silence filled the car. "Works as an audiobook narrator now, freelance." "Family?" "One sister, Sophia Rivera." Du-han lowered the phone. "That's it." He hesitated before adding, "She's nobody, sir." Jae-Min looked out the window at the passing city lights. "No," he said quietly, "she's not." He leaned back in the seat, remembering the sound of her voice, the way she hadn't cared who he was, hadn't been intimidated, hadn't asked for anything. For the first time in months, something unfamiliar stirred in his chest. Curiosity. Outside, Seattle traffic crawled through the evening rain, and somewhere across the city, Elena Rivera sat in her small apartment, completely unaware that spilling coffee on the wrong man had just changed her life forever. Before we continue, let me know in the comment section where you're watching from and what time it is in your city. I always love seeing viewers from different states across America. And if you're enjoying the story so far, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next parts of the story. Now, let's continue. 3 days later, Elena Rivera sat in the corner of a quiet coffee shop in downtown Seattle, completely unaware that someone across the room had been watching her for nearly 20 minutes. The place was small and warm, the kind of cafe older locals preferred. Wooden tables, soft jazz humming through dusty speakers, and the steady scent of roasted beans hanging in the air. Elena liked it because it was predictable. 7 steps from the door to the counter, 4 steps to the sugar station, 12 steps along the wall to the 3rd chair from the window. She always sat in the 3rd chair. Predictable meant safe. Her white cane rested against the table while one earbud sat in her ear. A tablet lay in front of her, the screen reader quietly reading lines of text through the earbud. She was reviewing an audiobook script. Her voice work paid the bills, barely, but it kept her independent, and that mattered more than money. Across the room, Kang Jae-Min sat with a laptop open in front of him. He hadn't looked at the screen once. Lee Dong-hyun sat 2 tables away pretending to read a newspaper. For a man who ran one of the most powerful private security firms on the West Coast, Jae-Min was behaving very strangely. Dong-hyun had noticed it immediately. His boss never wasted time. Yet, here they were, waiting in a coffee shop for a blind audiobook narrator. Finally, Elena removed her earbud and took a sip of coffee. Jae-Min stood and walked over. He sat in the chair across from her. The chair scraped softly against the floor. Elena assumed it was a stranger looking for an open seat. She ignored him. Then he spoke. "You take your coffee black," he said. Elena froze. That voice. She knew that voice instantly. Low, calm, a faint Korean accent hiding beneath careful English. She slowly lowered her coffee cup. "Well," she said, without looking up, "either Seattle is full of men with very specific voices," she tilted her head toward him, "or the man whose suit I ruined the other day is sitting across from me." Jae-Min smiled. "You remember." "I remember voices," she replied. "It's how I survive." There was a quiet pause. Then Elena asked bluntly, "Are you following me?" Jae-Min didn't hesitate. "I'm sitting in a coffee shop." "That's not an answer." "You walked in." She crossed her arms. "You're good at avoiding direct questions." "I run a company," he said. "That's still not an answer." Jae-Min leaned back slightly. "Fair." For a moment, neither spoke. Then Elena sighed. "All right, Mr. Expensive Suit, what do you want?" "Conversation." "That's suspicious." He chuckled. "You assume the worst." "No," she said calmly. "I assume reality." She picked up a sugar packet from the table and ran her fingers across it. "Let's test something." Jae-Min raised an eyebrow. "What kind of test?" "You asked what I do for work." "You said audiobook narration." "Correct." She cleared her throat slightly. Then she began reading the ingredients printed on the sugar packet, but the way she read them made them sound like the opening lines of a dramatic novel. Her voice deepened slightly. Slow, warm, precise. "Ingredients," she said softly. "Cane sugar, natural caramel coloring, and a trace of molasses." She paused like the sentence carried weight, like it meant something important, even though it didn't. Jae-Min blinked. Then he laughed. Really laughed. Across the room, Dong-hyun nearly dropped his newspaper. He hadn't heard that sound in months. Elena tilted her head. "Well?" "That was impressive. I just narrated sugar." "You made sugar sound like a courtroom confession." She smiled faintly. "That's the job." They talked for nearly 40 minutes. At first, it was guarded. Elena asked questions, direct ones. "What does your company actually do?" "Security," Jae-Min said. "For who?" "People who need it." "That sounds vague." "It's intentionally vague." "Strike one." "How many strikes do I get?" "3. "And then?" "Then I stop talking to you." He considered that. Fair rule. Eventually, the conversation softened. Elena talked about Memphis, where she grew up, about how she used to work in radio journalism, about the day her vision began fading. "It was like curtains closing from the sides," she said quietly. "First the edges, then the center." She tapped the table lightly with her finger. 6 months later, nothing. Jae-Min didn't interrupt. He just listened. "You learn to rebuild your world," she continued. "You memorize streets, count steps, recognize people by breathing patterns." "Breathing patterns?" Jae-Min asked. "Everyone breathes differently," she shrugged. "You'd be surprised what you notice when sight disappears." The cafe door suddenly opened loudly. A man rushed in and bumped Elena's chair, hard. Elena's jaw tightened. Before she could respond, Jae-Min stood. The temperature of the room seemed to drop instantly. His voice when he spoke was quiet. Too quiet. "Pick up the cane," he said. The man turned. "What?" "Pick it up." The man hesitated. Something about Jae-Min's expression made his confidence evaporate. He bent quickly and grabbed the cane. "Sorry," he muttered, handing it back to Elena. Jae-Min stepped closer. "Say it properly." The man swallowed. "I'm sorry, ma'am." Then he hurried out of the café. The note slid under the recording studio door with a faint scratching sound. Elena heard it immediately. Her headphones were on, her voice steady as she read the latest chapter of an audiobook thriller, but the moment the paper brushed against the floor, she stopped speaking. Years of blindness had sharpened her hearing. Little sounds mattered, and that sound didn't belong. She removed her headphones slowly. The studio was quiet. Too quiet. "Hello?" she called. No answer. Elena stood carefully and moved toward the door, her hand brushing along the wall until her fingers found the edge of the paper. She picked it up. A minute later, Devin, the college student who managed the small studio, came rushing down the hallway after Elena called him. "Can you read something for me?" she asked. "Sure." Devin unfolded the paper. His voice shifted as he read. It says—" He hesitated. "Just read it," Elena said. Devin swallowed. "Stay away from Kang Jae-Min." The room felt colder. Devin continued quietly. "This is your only warning." Silence filled the small studio. Elena stood there gripping her cane. "Is that it?" she asked. "Yes." Devin looked uneasy. "Do you want me to call someone?" "No." Her voice was calm, too calm. But inside, anger was rising like a storm. For 3 years, she had rebuilt her life piece by piece, learning how to move through darkness, learning how to work again, learning how to live again. And now, someone she had never met was trying to scare her into walking away from the first person who had made her laugh in years. No, that wasn't happening. That evening, Elena went to the café earlier than usual. She sat in her usual chair, third seat by the window, and waited. Exactly 22 minutes later, she heard the chair across from her move. "You're early today," Kang Jae-Min said. She didn't greet him. Instead, she slid the folded note across the table. "I need you to read that." Jae-Min picked it up. His expression changed the moment he saw the words. "Where did you get this?" he asked quietly. "My recording studio." "Who gave it to you?" It was slid under the door. The air between them grew tense. "Elena." "No." Her hand came down firmly on the table. No half answers today. He studied her carefully. Her chin was raised, her shoulders squared. Blind or not, she looked like someone ready for a fight. "You need to tell me who you really are," she said, "right now. Because someone out there thinks I'm important enough to threaten." Her voice tightened slightly. "And I'd like to know why." Jae-Min leaned back slowly. Around them, the cafe noise continued, cups clinking, quiet conversations. But at their table, the world felt very still. "You're not going to like the answer," he said. "Try me." He folded his hands together. "My company isn't just security consulting. I guessed that much. It operates in complicated environments." "That sounds like a lawyer talking." A faint smile touched his lips. "Sometimes wealthy people have disputes they don't want handled publicly." "Meaning?" "Meaning they call me." "And you solve the problem?" "Yes." "How?" He paused. "That depends on the problem." Elena exhaled slowly. "Are we talking about business disputes?" "Yes." "And?" "Sometimes family conflicts." "And?" "Occasionally criminal matters." That made her sit very still. "You work for criminals?" "No." "Then what?" "I make sure situations don't become violent." That sounds like a polite way of saying you deal with dangerous people. That's accurate. Elena absorbed that quietly. So the threat note likely came from a rival group, he said. What rival group? The Bake Syndicate. Even the name sounded heavy. Are they criminals? Yes. Are they dangerous? Yes. She leaned back, processing. Then she asked the one question that mattered. Am I in danger? Jae-Min answered without hesitation. Not while I'm alive. The certainty in his voice made her chest tighten. He meant that, completely. She could hear it. Another long silence settled between them. Finally, Elena sighed. You realize a normal person would run away after hearing all this? Yes. Good thing I'm not normal. That surprised him. You're staying? I didn't say that. She lifted the coffee cup. But I'm not leaving yet either. For the next hour, they talked more honestly than they had ever before. Elena shared things she hadn't planned to, about Memphis, about the radio station she used to work at, about the fiancé who left her after she lost her sight. He said he didn't sign up for this, she said quietly. Jae-Min's jaw tightened. He didn't deserve you. Apparently, he thought he deserved someone who could see. She shrugged lightly. That was 3 years ago. Do you still think about him? No. A small pause. Sometimes. Jae-Min didn't push further. Instead, he asked softly, Do you miss seeing? Elena let out a small laugh. Every day. She tapped her fingers lightly against the table. Sometimes I try to remember colors. Which one is hardest? Red. Her voice dropped. I think I'm starting to forget what red looks like. Jae-Min felt something twist in his chest. Because he knew about the surgery. Dong-hyun had included it in the background report, an experimental procedure in Houston. Cost? $500,000. A small fortune to most people. Pocket change to him. But he hadn't said anything yet. He wasn't sure why. Maybe because the moment hope entered the picture, expectations followed, and he didn't want to promise something he couldn't guarantee. They left the café just after sunset. Streetlights flickered on across Seattle. Halfway down the block, Elena suddenly stopped. Someone's watching us, she said quietly. Jae-Min's eyes scanned the street instantly. 2 men stood across the road pretending to check their phones. He recognized them immediately. Bake Syndicate spotters. They vanished the moment his gaze locked onto them. His expression hardened. Elena. Yes? We're going to take a different route tonight. She raised an eyebrow. Is that your polite way of saying things are about to get complicated? Yes. She nodded once. All right then. As they turned the corner, neither of them noticed the black sedan parked at the end of the street. Inside the car, a man spoke quietly into his phone. Yes, he said. The blind girl. He watched them disappear down the sidewalk. She's important to him. On the other end of the call, a voice responded calmly. Good. A pause. Then we finally know how to hurt Kang Jae-Min. The man ended the call. And somewhere far away, a plan quietly began to unfold.
The woman introduced herself as Cynthia. Her voice was warm, calm, professional, the kind of voice that made people trust her immediately. Elena Rivera was standing in her small apartment kitchen when the knock came. 3 steady taps on the door. She opened it carefully. Miss Rivera? The woman asked politely. Yes. My name is Cynthia Matthews. I work with an organization called New Vision Partners. Elena tilted her head slightly. I'm not familiar with that. That's understandable, Cynthia replied gently. We're a nonprofit that helps patients receive advanced medical treatment that insurance companies refuse to cover. That sentence made Elena's heart skip. There was only one treatment in the world that description could possibly refer to. Cynthia continued. We recently reviewed your ophthalmology records. Your doctor submitted your case during a research screening. Elena's fingers tightened around the edge of the door. "You're talking about the retinal regeneration surgery," she said quietly. "Yes." The word hung in the air like electricity. Elena had read the research article dozens of times. Every detail was burned into her memory. Experimental, high success rate, limited trials, cost nearly $500,000. "Why are you here?" Elena asked carefully. "Our foundation recently secured a private grant. We're funding a small number of patients for the next phase of the procedure." Elena felt her pulse racing. "You're saying it would be paid for?" "Completely. Travel, surgery, recovery. All of it." For a moment, Elena couldn't breathe. 3 years. 3 years of living in darkness. 3 years of convincing herself hope was pointless. And suddenly, someone was standing at her door offering the impossible. "This sounds unreal," she said quietly. Cynthia handed her a small envelope. Inside was a card with a phone number. "We'd like to schedule a consultation call with the surgeon in Houston." Elena ran her fingers across the raised lettering on the card. "When?" "Tomorrow, if you're available." After Cynthia left, Elena sat on her couch for a long time, holding the card. Her sister Sophia arrived an hour later and immediately sensed something was different. "Okay," Sophia said, dropping her purse on the table. "What happened?" Elena handed her the envelope. "Read it." 2 minutes later, Sophia's voice was shaking. "Flo, this says the surgery would be free." "I know. Do you believe it?" "I don't know." But her voice betrayed her because she wanted to believe it. Badly. That night, Elena lay in bed staring into the darkness behind her eyelids, trying to remember colors again. Red, blue, sunlight, the way rain looked sliding down a window. For the first time in years, hope slipped through the cracks of the careful wall she had built around herself. Meanwhile, across the city, in a glass penthouse overlooking Seattle's skyline, Kang Jae-Min was learning the truth. Lee Dong-hyun placed a thick folder on the desk. "Sir," he said quietly, "we intercepted this communication an hour ago." Jae-Min opened it. The first page contained a financial report. Shell corporations, investment transfers, ownership records. Halfway down the page, one name appeared. New Vision Partners. Jae-Min's expression darkened instantly. "Explain." Dong-hyun exhaled slowly. "It's not a charity." "Then what is it?" "A front." "For who?" Dong-hyun hesitated. "The bike syndicate." Silence filled the office. Jae-Min continued reading. The documents detailed everything. The fake nonprofit, the grant offer, the consultation, the surgery, and the real purpose behind it. Leverage. Control. If Elena accepted the surgery, the bike syndicate would control every stage of the process, every appointment, every payment, every medical decision. They would own the only thing she wanted most in the world, her sight. Jae-Min closed the folder slowly. "They know about her condition." "Yes." "They're using it against me." "Yes." Dong-hyun paused. "There's more." Jae-Min looked up. "What?" "The clinic in Houston." "Yes." "It was recently acquired." "By who?" Dong-hyun's voice lowered. "Another shell company. Connected to the bike syndicate." Jae-Min leaned back in his chair. For the first time in years, he felt something dangerously close to rage, because they hadn't just threatened Elena, they had taken her hope and turned it into a weapon. Across the city, Elena sat on her couch holding her phone. The consultation call had gone well. The surgeon sounded real, professional, hopeful. The procedure could potentially restore partial vision. 40% chance, maybe more. She had nearly called Jae-Min to tell him, but something stopped her. Because over the past week, he had been different, distracted, busy, canceling meetings. His voice on the phone sounded distant, and Elena had learned something the hard way in life.
When people started pulling away, it usually meant they were already halfway gone. She placed the phone on the table. Meanwhile, Jae-Min stood at the floor-to-ceiling window in his penthouse. Seattle's lights stretched across the dark water like scattered diamonds. Dong-hyun spoke quietly behind him. "What do you want to do?" Jae-Min didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked a question. "Is there another surgeon capable of the procedure?" Dong-hyun opened his tablet. 1. Name: Dr. Choi Hwan. Location: Seoul. Jae-Min turned slowly. "Contact him. That may take time. I don't care how long it takes." Dong-hyun nodded, but then he added something carefully. "There's another complication." "What?" Dong-hyun hesitated. The bike syndicate didn't act alone. Jae-Min's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" Dong-hyun placed another document on the desk. "This deal required inside information only someone close to you would know." Jae-Min scanned the page. His jaw tightened, because the name listed in the report belonged to someone he never expected to see connected to this. His father, Kang Hyun-soo, the man who built the empire, the man who taught him everything about power, and the man who apparently believed Elena Rivera was a weakness worth eliminating. Back in her apartment, Elena finally made a decision. She picked up the phone, dialed the number on the card, and scheduled the surgery consultation, because after 3 years in darkness, hope was too powerful to ignore, and she had no idea that hope had just placed her directly in the middle of a war she couldn't see. The night Kang Jae-Min learned the truth about the surgery was the same night he drove to Elena's apartment. Alone. No security, no driver. Just him and the quiet anger sitting heavy in his chest. Rain fell softly over Seattle as his car stopped outside her building. For several minutes, he didn't move. He simply sat there staring at the apartment lights above, because for the first time in years, Kang Jae-Min didn't know what to do. His enemies had found the one weakness he never realized he had: Elena Rivera. Finally, he stepped out of the car and walked toward the entrance. 3 minutes later, he was standing outside her door. He knocked. Once. Twice. Footsteps approached inside. The door opened. "Elena?" She recognized his breathing immediately. "You're late," she said quietly. Her hair was loose, falling over her shoulders. She wore an oversized sweater and soft gray sweatpants. Home clothes. Comfortable clothes. The kind you wear when you trust the person standing in your doorway. "You're standing there like something terrible happened," she added. "Either tell me or come inside." Kang Jae-Min stepped into the apartment. The door closed behind him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He looked around the small space. Everything was organized perfectly. Furniture placed carefully, objects exactly where they needed to be. Because when you couldn't see, the world had to stay in place. "Elena," he said slowly. "Yes?" "Did someone visit you today?" She paused. "Yes." "What did she say?" Elena walked toward the kitchen counter and poured coffee into a mug by touch. "They're offering to pay for the surgery." Kang Jae-Min felt his chest tighten. "Did you believe them?" "I want to." She took a sip. "Is that stupid?" "No." Her voice softened. "For the first time in years, someone told me I might see again." She turned toward where she knew he was standing. "You've been distant lately," she said gently. "Are you happy for me?" The question hit him harder than anything else, because the truth was complicated. He was happy, but he was also furious, because the surgery wasn't a gift. It was a trap. "Elena," he said quietly, "there's something I need to tell you." She set the mug down. "Then tell me." He took a step closer. "The organization offering the surgery isn't real." Silence filled the room. "What do you mean?" "It's controlled by my enemies." Her fingers slowly tightened against the counter. "So the surgery isn't real?" "No. The surgeon is real. The procedure is real. but they're offering it to control you. Elena's breathing grew unsteady. Control me how? By controlling your hope. Another long silence followed. Finally, she spoke. You should have told me sooner. I know. Why didn't you? Because I wanted to fix it first. And did you? Yes. Her head lifted slightly. What do you mean? There's another surgeon, Jae-Min said. In Seoul. He pioneered the technique. I contacted him. Elena's voice trembled. You're serious? Yes. And the surgery? I'll cover it. No. The word came instantly, firm. Jae-Min blinked. Elena? No. She shook her head. I won't take $500,000 from you. You're not taking it. I'm giving it. That's worse. Why? Because then I owe you. He stepped closer. You don't owe me anything. Everyone says that before they ask for something later. I'm not everyone. She exhaled slowly. I know. Her voice softened. That's the problem. A quiet moment passed between them. Then Elena reached forward. Her fingers brushed his arm, found his shoulder, moved upward until they touched his face. She traced the line of his jaw carefully, the same way she learned every space she lived in, mapping, understanding, memorizing. You know what's strange? What? You could have 3 heads. I don't. That's good. Her fingers paused near the small scar beside his ear. What's this from? A long story. Dangerous? Very. She smiled faintly. That sounds about right. Her hand slid down his collar. Jae-Min? Yes. Why are you really doing this? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said the simplest truth he had. Because you didn't care who I was. She felt his heartbeat through the fabric of his shirt. And that matters? It matters more than you think. The room fell quiet again. Then Elena leaned forward and kissed him. Soft first, careful, like 2 people testing a fragile moment, but the kiss deepened quickly. Months of tension, fear, hope, everything poured into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, Elena laughed quietly. Well, she said, that complicates things. Jae-Min smiled for the first time that night. Yes, it does. 3 months later, Seoul, South Korea. Elena sat in a hospital room holding Jae-Min's hand. The surgery had taken 6 hours. The recovery had taken weeks. Today, the bandages would finally come off. Her heart pounded in her chest. What if it didn't work? She whispered. Jae-Min squeezed her hand gently. Then we face that together. The doctor stepped forward. Ready? Elena nodded slowly. The bandages were removed. For several seconds, nothing. Just darkness. Then suddenly, a faint blur. Light. Shapes. Colors. Her breath caught in her throat. Oh my God! Tears streamed down her face. It worked! Her vision was still blurry, unclear, but she could see. Slowly, her eyes adjusted. The first face that came into focus was standing directly in front of her. Tall, dark hair, sharp features, serious eyes filled with quiet emotion. She stared at him. You're handsome. Jae-Min blinked. That's your first observation? She laughed with tears. Well, I've been curious. He leaned closer. Now that you can see me, his voice softened. Do you still want me? Elena reached up and touched his face again, but this time she could see it. I loved you long before I ever saw you. And that was the story of how a blind woman spilled coffee on the wrong man and accidentally found the love that changed her life forever. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me where you're watching from. And remember, sometimes the people who see us the clearest are the ones we meet in the dark.